Hello YouTube. Today I want to make a video about society, the general direction we're going as a society. And I gotta say, I'm not happy about it. I was born in 1979 and I was given a classical liberal education. I grew up in California in elementary school and then I moved to Nebraska. Um, we were taught things today that you probably wouldn't see in a school anymore. Things like the ideas of the founding fathers. We I don't even know if they pledge allegiance to the flag anymore, but maybe they do, maybe they don't. Um, it was a different operating system, you know, and maybe it wasn't superior to what we're teaching in schools now. Maybe it was. Personally, I think it was. I think it was the peak of Western liberalism. Um, we learned pretty much everything. We heard every argument. It's not like I didn't hear a communist argument back then. We would do various things in school, and some of it was just reading, and we'd read reports from China, like there was leftist programming in my education, but it was completely different than what you get today. And I'm not going to say that I'm a right wing person. I'm not a left wing person either. In fact, I think people's willingness to identify politically is one of the stupidest things ever. You got all these people who join their tribe, right? They find the side they want to side with, and they argue for everything their side agrees with and nothing the other side agrees with. And frankly, I don't like the discourse I'm seeing on the internet. I don't like the debates that people are having. Everyone is motivated by some bias. They can't hide it. They can't steelman their opponent. Everything's a gotcha. Everyone just wants clout. They just want to win a debate so they look better. Society has fallen apart. We used to believe in things like rationality and reason. We used to believe that the best argument would win and that a person could change their mind. Imagine that. Nowadays, you just get brainwashing, and who's trying to are leftists and right wingers trying to have debates. You don't really see it that much, and when you do see it, they're extremely hostile to each other. And I'm not going to say that like it's just people on the left that are guilty of this, right? It's both sides. Okay, yeah, I said it. It's both sides. The people on the right are demonizing the people on the left, and the people on the left are demonizing the people on the right. And this is not how we got here. This is not what the news used to be like, 20, 30 years ago. You turn on the news, you get a pretty much unbiased report of what happened. There's not a clear political bias except with certain stations. Now everything's polarized. Everyone's playing to their audience. Donald Trump is the devil. MAGA is the devil. Leftists are the devil. And that's it. And there's no reconciliation to be had. You can't have a debate. I mean, first of all, if you take like the postmodern philosophies that have completely infected, our schools and stuff, they don't necessarily even believe in rationality. They don't necessarily believe that an argument can be better than an argument and that anything is true. They think everything's just a power struggle. And when you argue with someone else, you're just trying to assert dominance over that person. So, of course, if you think that, You take no responsibility for what you think. You don't evaluate anything you read. You just try to win the power struggle. Like Lord Voldemort, there's no good and evil, only power. And this bullshit is completely destroying any possibility that there could be a reconciliation. No one's going to admit that the other side is even a rational human, or they stand for something. Right wingers think of left wingers that they're trying to impose their morality on other people, the woke morality. And of course, there's the aspect of moral degeneracy, but I don't really care about that a whole lot. And I can't say that I want to be a conservative because, I don't care about religion. I'm not a Christian. If anything, I was into Buddhism for a long time. As you can see by my handle, Zen Chess. And eventually I just gave that shit up. I decided that Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, all of it is basically just a scam. But I'm not going to go into that right now. I just want to talk about, going back to normalcy, right? Where you can actually have debates with people, where you can actually argue the other side's point without lying about it, where you can tell a version of events without clouding what happened, where you can concede a point and say, you know what, I still don't believe you're right about this, but yeah, I'll concede that point. When I see debates, every single thing is argued over for no reason, no matter how dumb it is. And both sides, all sides, okay, it's not just two sides, but all sides have stupid points that they will not give up. And I'm not going to say what they are. I'm not going to give examples because, it's just going to give you another reason to discount what I'm saying, because I'm going to say something like, the Hunter Biden laptop. And you either believe it's a lie or it's the truth, you believe something totally different. And to concede anything means you give up power, right? So you can't do it because you don't value truth. You don't value telling the truth and honesty. And again, conservatives will blame this on left-wingers, but I see the same thing on the right wing too. Civility has completely disappeared. And how can you have a debate with someone and change someone's mind? We can't even agree on definitions. Words in the dictionary have been changed in political struggles. Okay? The dictionary. So, how would you change? Like, if you were a conservative or a classical liberal and you just wanted to convert someone out of, like, being woke, how would you change their mind? Because literally anything you can talk about, they have their own vocabulary. They have their own sets of assumptions on how the world works, what is true, what is false, what they believe in, what they were told, what the implications are. So if you say something, that's your gotcha, but to them it means something completely different. So to have an actual debate like this, it would take so long just to get on the same page. And that's not what anyone wants to do. It's boring. because you have to argue over every single little thing. And you're not just arguing their personal beliefs, you're arguing against ideologies that were created sometimes literally centuries ago between idiotic philosophers who, they were popular because maybe they were a leftist movement or a conservative movement and people liked them, they were popular. I've read a lot of philosophers lately. I've been watching stuff on YouTube, and a lot of this stuff is just total fucking nonsense. If I listen to an Alan Watts lecture, okay, when he talks about Buddhism, he's talking about many of the same topics that you get from one of these old philosophers like Hegel or somebody. I'm not an expert on philosophy, but like I said, I've been consuming this content. And if you read some of this shit, right off the bat, you have to know all the terminology, right? They invent their own words instead of just stating what they're trying to say clearly. Why would they have to do that? I'm telling you, if you listen to an Alan Watts lecture, he'll talk about things like the subject and the object, idealism, materialism, spiritualism, all these concepts which aren't necessarily simple. But he'll say it in a way that anyone can understand, right? But you go into people who are arguing about this stuff, and it's just total word salad. I mean, you could take any sentence and just say, what the fuck is this? And these ideologies, these philosophies, whether it's Hegel or Marx or whoever, I don't know. I mean, there are professionals in academia that gatekeep with language. And they do it on purpose. They don't need to do it. If you have to use a fancy word for something, it just means that you don't know how to communicate. Like, sure, fellow intellectuals may know the word, but speaking in an obtuse manner, who does it help? It just gatekeeps people that don't know the lingo, right? Like, I don't want to have to study German philosophy for years before I can just engage with the ideas, right? I just want the ideas. Simple phrases, it's like this was happening in California, where it's a sign that just says like, left turn, it just used some complicated phrase to make the same statement. And so the level of gatekeeping in academia is ridiculous, And then on top of that, you find that people today don't know how to think. Why would you know how to think if you've been taught that there's no such thing as rational thought? Why would you be able to evaluate an argument if you've never done that? So these people are just collecting philosophers. They're just collecting Pokemon cards. They're collecting ideologies, interpretations, books upon books upon books. Some of these people wrote their philosophies, like I said, over 100, 200 years ago. And why we're so stuck on what people of the past thought is beyond me. Now, it's one thing if it's science, right? If it's science and you need to know the theory of relativity to make an advancement in science, yeah, you need to know the difference, okay? Unless you're going to just completely revolutionize everything and say it's all fucking wrong. But in philosophy, why are we not saying that? You know, why are we stuck in ideologies that were written by dead men from hundreds of years ago? Like, take Marxism, right? You know, so many people are invested in Marxism, but why? It's just this old philosophy. And I just feel like people aren't creating their own philosophies. Like, you go to college, you read this, you read that, you learn this, you learn that. I saw a YouTube video recently where this guy said he read a statement from a book, and the guy said something like, X author is trying to take away the mythology from religion. And you know what he said? He said, I've never read about that. I don't understand it. It's like he can't form a rational thought. He probably knows what a myth is. He probably knows what a mythology is. But because he's never read an academic textbook by a philosopher on the topic, because he has no media literacy, he doesn't know what to think about it. He can't understand the statement. He doesn't understand what the words mean in the first place. And all these people are quoting philosophers. He really said that. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. This is what he said. And like, as a chess player, I'm familiar with this topic because you've got chess authors that say one thing and the reader just reads something completely different. Silman said that if you fianchetto your king, you fianchetto a bishop and the king is on the opposite flank, you can't do that. But Silman never said that, but that's what you read from it. He said that tempo is worth 2 pawns, and no, he said a tempo is worth 3 pawns, Okay, of course, that's not the example, but, a pawn is worth 3 tempos, right? No, he said 2 tempos. He said the knight is worth 3. No, he said the knight is worth 3.25. And people just get into these arguments, and they don't engage with the ideas. They don't evolve the ideas. They don't think about things over a period of decades and come up with their own ideas that later they find out was actually in the philosophy themselves. These people have no brain. But why would they? They've been taught that they have no agency, that there's a correct way to think, media literacy. You just learn the correct thought, and that's it. The human mind, the human individual, is capable of incredible things. And more, it's just like all of the agency is being taken away from people. You're not responsible for anything you do. You don't have free will, so you're not responsible. That's one of the dumbest philosophical arguments I've ever heard. People are literally arguing whether the laws of physics support free will or not, and using that as an argument why we have no agency, why we have no responsibility for crime. And it's like, dude, we have a brain. We're capable of self-reflective thought. Okay? It doesn't matter if the laws of physics say you have no free will, right? You still act as a free agent. You still think about what you are doing. You weigh the goods and cons. You use all the philosophy you know, all the thinking you can, and maybe it takes you a long time, but you come to conclusions based on your own agency. And when you fail, that's your fault. Right? Barring some weird circumstance. When you fail, it's your fault. It's not society's fault. And really, that's the good news, because what it means is if you simply change your mind state, if you simply believe that if you work hard at something, you can accomplish it, right? And this goes back to the whole theory of learning. Some people believe that they just are a certain way and there's nothing they can do about it. And some people believe that if they try hard at something, they can accomplish things. And more today in society, the agency is just being taken away from people, right? And I'm not going to go into the politics of it. I think we all know the politics of it. But basically, I just want to say that, Western society is falling apart because we've lost our soul. We've lost the values of the founding fathers. We've lost the principles of freedom of speech, of a liberal democracy, you know, of equal rights and all that stuff. Now we have different rights. And, we used to believe that if you put in hard work and you do a good job, you'll succeed. And a lot of people don't believe that anymore. A lot of companies don't believe that anymore. It's not meritocracy anymore. It's equity. And if you can, call yourself a victim somehow, you should just be given advantages to catch up. And it doesn't really work. I know it's a politically charged topic, and I'm not going to go like more in depth on that because I don't want to be misrepresented, right? I don't want to appeal to any political group. But if your philosophy is that, you have no agency, you can't come to conclusions, you can't, all the time I hear this stuff about do your own research, right? And right now, the left is criticizing the right because the right says, do your own research. And it just blows my mind. That's how it was, right? People did their own research, right? Yeah, there's scientists. Yeah, there's people to listen to. But in the end, you have to weigh all the evidence. You have to listen to all the sides of the debate and come to your own conclusion. You don't just get told what to think. So yeah, I mean, basically, I see no hope. I think we lost this battle so long ago, and I don't see anyone really trying to return to what we had. On the right now, on the conservative side, it's like the alternative to the woke leftist side. The conservatives aren't taking a liberal position, right? They're pushing their agenda. They want religion. And, when I grew up, I didn't have respect for religion. I went to church sometimes, but I was never raised religious. And I listened to arguments and I found them unconvincing. So I can't just join the conservatives because I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that they're saying. You know, conservatives, right wingers, they're not classical liberals, right? They're not what we had 20, 30 years ago almost everywhere. Let's just acknowledge that everything has changed. Yeah, so basically that's the gist of my video. We're all doomed. Nobody cares about the truth anymore. Nobody cares if they're right about anything. Both sides hate each other. and they're unwilling to concede any ground because all they care about is winning instead of knowing the truth and living a virtuous life. And many people have false virtue. They think they know better than other people. They dictate to other people. You know, it's a total disaster. And, you know, is there going to be a movement back to like sanity? I don't think so. I think everything's just going to get more polarized. I think, you know, the woke mob is just going to get crazier, cancel more people, and the conservatives are just going to demonize the woke mob. And of course, it's not just conservatives versus leftists or whatever, but you know, I don't see anyone. Like I watch political commentators on YouTube. I don't hear any rational voices. I don't hear anyone that I consider to be devoid of bias, right? I don't see a person who can actually steelman the argument of their opponent. You know, it's strawman all the way down. There's no integrity left. And let's not get started on like the YouTube economy of clickbait and all that stuff, where, you know, outrage is just for sale. So unfortunately, I think a lot of children, you know, get all their information from YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or something. And the algorithm is what's promoting the content. And you do what the algorithm wants. And if you don't get promoted. So that's just shaping all our narratives. I could go into a whole thing about the algorithms and how ridiculous they are. Like, even at what they're trying to do, they're just failing completely. I found on like YouTube, for instance, you just get put into a bubble. YouTube gives you what it thinks you want. And pretty much you never get anything but that. So if you search for something, you'll get that for a little while if you watch it. But like, if all you do is watch your YouTube recommended feed, it's just a fucking echo chamber. And there are things you can do to fix that. You can watch like let's say you're a conservative or something and you want to get your feed more left wing, you know, just watch some kind of Marxist or some kind of leftist podcast, 100% completion. Suddenly you'll start getting more leftist stuff in your feed, but I don't think people are really interested in that nowadays. I don't know why people act surprised when I join a leftist like Patreon or something because I'm listening to their podcast. And then I mentioned in the comments like, oh yeah, I'm probably a lot more conservative than most of you people. And they're like, what are you even doing here? Like, why? It's like, even from an antagonist standpoint, they can't comprehend the idea that you would listen to your enemy. You know, only your enemy shows you where you are weak. If you don't listen to the other side's arguments, you have no argument, right? You know, most of the discourse in public debate, like I said, it's all straw men. And, you know, it's sad. It's really sad, you know. I don't know. It'll probably never get better, but, you know, life is complicated. I think things change a lot. And how would you even know if it changed? Because you're just in your YouTube echo chamber anyways. You're just in your news media echo chamber. And, you know, Google has become so completely biased lately. If you're searching for some technical thing, you know, you'll find it. But if you're looking for a political topic, you're not going to get, like, if you're searching for something you've seen before, there's a good chance you just won't find it again unless you go to another search engine, or you completely modify your search. Even scrolling through results won't help. Like, all the political topics are just completely um you know taken over by ideology. It's, if you control the webpage that is displayed, you control the narrative. Okay, and that's what happened on Google and YouTube. um there's certain people that are censored on YouTube, and if you search for them, you just don't find much content about them. Maybe you can search for like what's been out in the last week or last month, and maybe you'll get the content you're looking for. But you know the internet used to be an open place. I've been on the internet since 1993. It used to be just complete Wild West. There might be a forum and there might be some censorship, some dickhead administrator or something. But today the internet, it's just dead. I mean, like, if you don't have a search engine anymore, what do you have? Google used to be a good search engine. You would find whatever you were looking for. You could type in almost any quote and it would just pop up, right? A million fucking results, right? Now I search for things that I've seen before and they don't show up. With quotes, it doesn't matter. I have to, maybe I have to switch to DuckDuckGo, or maybe I have to search to a Russian search engine. I have to get off the mainstream platforms to find what I'm looking for all the time. And, narratives change all the time. Like, what used to be a conservative position, now it's a leftist position, or vice versa. And when the narrative changes, so do all the front pages on Google, right? It's just a disaster. I've considered creating my own search engine, just indexing the entire internet and just seeing what a real search engine is like again. Because, the degradation in quality on the platforms that we use is just ridiculous. The internet is not like it used to be. But yeah, at least we still have a semi-free internet. At least, we still have freedom to some extent. Because without the value for these things, I mean, they could just disappear in a heartbeat. And once the internet goes, humanity is doomed. I mean, the government used to be corrupt in the past. Things used to be corrupt. And almost nobody really knew about it until the internet came along. And then people who were paying attention, who did research, who went to websites, they learned things, right? They learned all kinds of things. And the internet was the greatest revolution that ever happened in mankind. Instant communication across the world, everywhere. And I remember reading Ender's Game, in which, Valerie and Peter would go on like Usenet. Basically, it was like a simulation of Usenet. And they just make good arguments on a forum, and they were like super popular, as political thinkers and stuff. But that never happened. Usenet died. There's no forums. There's nothing like Twitter. What is Twitter? Twitter is a bastardization of a forum. How many characters do you get to tweet? Maybe you have a Twitlonger or something, but Twitter is just a gotcha, soundbite chamber. It's not a forum, for fuck's sake. You can't write anything. It's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Yeah, so the internet it's not what it used to be. Things aren't going to get better. And, I'd like to change that, but I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think I can convince someone that doesn't believe in things like rational thought, you know, merit, I don't believe someone that doesn't think that one ideology can be superior to another. That there's no objective truth claims, that kind of thing. I don't think I can ever convince them. Maybe like I don't know. Maybe if I use a rational argument or just keep talking to them, maybe I could convince them. But I think the indoctrination is just so deep. The terms and conditions of the argument have just been prepared so well by all the sides. Like I said, if you can't agree on definitions, how are you going to have a debate if literally everything you're talking about means something else? And you know, we don't have any kind of true source. We don't have any kind of people we can turn to find out like what the truth is. You're pretty much just on your own. It's the Wild West. And that's why people say do your own research, because everything that is being pushed out there, you're just the product. When you get raised in a school today, a college or something, maybe you're from California, maybe it's an elementary school. I'm not an expert on what's being taught in schools, but I've heard a lot. When you get taught that stuff, okay, let's say you come out as a Marxist, right? And I don't think that was a very popular thing, except back in like the humanities or whatever back in the day. So maybe you become a Marxist, but do you really believe that? Like, you got to realize I was raised in a different operating system, classical liberalism. And, it seemed good, right? But now everyone's a Marxist, right? All the kids are some form of progressive or communist or Marxist or whatever term they want to use, postmodern, whatever. Some form of leftist, basically. And they don't know why they believe that stuff. They've just been indoctrinated. They're the product. And it changed everywhere. The zeitgeist changed, right? The school started teaching different things. Like now you don't get taught about revolutionary founders of the Constitution and how great they were and how their principles of a free society were so integral and how science was evolving and all this stuff. They just get indoctrinated with a different ideology, right? And what are you going to do? I mean, I'd like to say people should come together, but every time I've had that argument with someone, it's just demonization, They did this and they did that and they believe this and this and that, and if it's about Trump, all MAGAs just they're really fascists, and it's a cult of Trump, and they don't really want America to be great again, and really America was never great because all the founding fathers were slave owners. And, so you start with that ideology, and how can you argue anyone out of that? They don't have the same value system you do because you grew up in a different time period. So I just want to say to anyone out there, if you have a shred of rationality, just consider the fact that pretty much everything you've been taught your whole life is just, you're the product of, propaganda, ideologies, and it doesn't have to be the right or left or Marxist or whatever, it could be whoever's teaching you the stuff. I'm sure if you go to a conservative school, you get taught exactly the opposite. And I just don't know how we get out of this situation. Like, things have become so chaotic and people are so angry at each other all the time. And you've got, violence. You've got, all kinds of things like cancellations for improper means, like, fake cancellations, for whatever motive these people have. Hit pieces in journals and how do you get out of that? Like, how do we actually return to a place of sanity? I don't know. I'm not sure anyone wants that. They just want their side to win. If you believe in communism or Marxism or something, you don't care. I mean, you just want to win. That's all it is. It doesn't matter if you have to lie. And I don't necessarily believe that, a liberal is any better today. I mean, I just see so very few people being honest. So yeah, I think I'm kind of repeating myself. So yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and thank you for watching. Goodbye.